overall goal of our 3 club officer training sessions is to gain the tools, strategies, and resources that all of us need to finish strong. And we have tonight, we're emphasizing right where we're at in our calendar year, which is keeping those members engaged, retaining our membership, getting ready for renewal. How do we keep those meetings exciting? And we hope, because we know actually that members come because they are building relationships. They may originally start because they want a skill, but they stay because of the relationships and the friendships they build. And tonight, we want you all to expand your pool of friendships to include many of the people you're going to hear tonight. I have a wonderful, distinguished Toastmaster with lots and lots of experience who is going to facilitate the first hour of our training tonight with an expert panel discussion. She has held several committee chair positions within our district and served, I know she's been an officer in multiple clubs. She is a distinguished Toastmaster, and many of you have heard her bells. Please welcome our facilitator for our panel presentation, Marie Loeffler.
Thank you so very much, Vicki. As I'm doing this short introduction, Sue, can you please spotlight our panelists so that they can all be on the screen? And everyone, as you heard Vicki say, tonight we are dealing with membership retention. And as you're seeing them come on the screen, you see that we have an incredible panel of experienced Toastmasters. They come from all across District 84, and they have a variety of experience in both club and district officer positions. We also have a representation of many different officer roles. And as you look through this group of beautiful people, you're going to realize also, and as you hear them speak, that we come from a variety of clubs, all of which have very, very different personalities. And that is what we want to bring to you tonight. Short introductions. I'm just going to say your name, and if you could at that point, please just let us know how many years you have been in Toastmasters and also what current roles you hold in your club. Bobby Blackman, if you would start us out, please.
Hello, everyone. I have been a Toastmaster, well, as of April 1st, it will be 7 years. Presently, I am a president of Uptown Toastmasters, as well as a few other officer positions in other clubs. We'll keep it short.
Excellent. Thank you, Bobby. And George, could you please tell us your experience?
Yes, I've been a Toastmaster for 14 years now. 2008, I started this journey. And this year, I am the VP of membership of 3 clubs.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm a diehard.
All right. Thank you. Perfect opportunity tonight to share all your expertise. Maria, could you please tell us your experience?
Hello, everyone. I've been a Toastmaster since 2010, so now going on 13 years. Our district's immediate past public relations manager, and I'm a seasoned member at our club. I feel like a slacker next to George and
Thank you, Maria. I'm sure you'll have a great deal to share with us. And Nick, would you please tell us your experience?
Absolutely. My name's Nick Patterson. I'm the current president of North Jacks Toastmasters Club and also Division 8 director. So glad to be here this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick. And Edith, what's your experience, please?
Absolutely. Probably I'm the rookie of the group with 4 years and few months, but I had served in similar roles in the clubs that I belong to. Currently, I'm the president for Hunters Creek and vice president of education for Bartow. I have been area director, division director, currently a speaker, bureau chair, and education chair last year. So.
Excellent. Thank you. And one more person to share with us. Steve, please tell us your experience.
Hello, hello. I am Steve Vaughn. I have been a Toastmaster for 7 years, and I have been in every single role multiple times. Currently, I am the treasurer for one of my clubs and the VPE for another club. So I'm only in 2 now. I'm trying to cut back.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. And thank you to all of the panelists. As you can see, there's a wide variety of experience and roles being held. Now, just for you who are on the call, there were some questions sent ahead of time to our panelists for them to think about, and those are going to form the foundation for our discussion tonight. As far as the panelists, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a question, and then I'm going to ask one person to start the discussion. And as we agreed to in our briefing, we're going to try to use our Toastmaster training and keep those responses to 1 minute or 60 seconds, whatever you prefer to think of. Jeremy is on the spotlight, and he will be showing a red background at 45 seconds. So no excuses. You'll know, you will know when to wrap it up. After that first person has spoken, if anyone else does want to contribute, which I'm sure you will, please raise your physical hand so I can see it and we don't mess up the spotlighting. Also, panelists, let me remind you, when you do add on to the discussion, please try to offer a unique perspective to that question and not repeat what someone else has already said. Hopefully, panelists, you've gotten all your information. Any questions from you at this point? Excellent. Okay, participants on the call, if you have questions as we move along, please type them into the chat. And what I will do is at the end of our discussion, I'm going to zoom back up to the top of the chat and try to address any questions that have not been addressed by our panelists. And as a favor to all of us, if from this point on you could just use that chat for the questions, that would be most appreciated. We'll have plenty of time at the end of our time tonight to chit chat with each other. But if you limit your chatting right now to questions, that will help me find them a lot quicker at the end. We are ready to get started, but before the questions, I would ask Sue to launch our first poll, please, so we can see who is with us tonight. So Sue, if you would launch that first poll that asks people to identify what roles they are currently in. There we go. Okay, and just, this is a no-brainer question. What role are you currently in? And the VPEs are identifying themselves the fastest of all. But as your answers continue to come in, I'm sure all our panelists can see that we have a wide representation of all of our officer roles, and we even have a few people who are not currently club officers. So bravo to those of you who are here who are not currently club officers. Also, the second
there's
question.
Actually 2 questions as part of this poll.
Yep, and the second question is, which officer role do you want to learn more about? And as I'm looking down that list, it appears that we have a pretty even number of people wanting to learn more about each of the roles. 10% for each sergeant at arms, treasurer, and secretary. Public relations, 26%, and VP education, 28%, and then membership, 20%, president, 24%. So panelists, as you answer the questions, please try to address your question from each of those different perspectives as we move forward. So first question of the night is, how does each officer impact retention? How does each officer impact retention? Maria, what are your thoughts?
Well, thank you, Marie. This is a topic I think we're all passionate about, but how does each officer impact retention? I'll start by saying that every officer plays a pivotal role in ensuring that our members feel welcome and that they find their place and their voice within our clubs. Not only do I think the officers are responsible for that, I think all members, So we're all responsible to ensure that our members feel safe, feel confident, and that they get what they came to receive from Toastmasters. So for me, finding the opportunity to connect with our new members is key. Asking them what they want, I think, builds that connection, and allowing them to feel like they are valued at every meeting and in every opportunity.
Thank you, Maria. Which of the panelists has something additional to add? Nick, and then Edith.
I believe it's also critical to remember that officers affect retention because they set the energy and the pace for the club. Your collaborative energy as you approach your officer roles are going to be critical in retention, because if you embody the Toastmasters spirit, if you're lively and engaged or reflective and engaged, as you're engaged in your meetings and bring quality, people want access to that quality, and you're going to keep them if your entire board brings that value through their own efforts. How are their speeches? How are their evaluation? How are they showing that Toastmasters add value to their life? Thank you.
Excellent thoughts, Nick. Thank you so very much. Edith, do you have something additional to add?
Nick stole a little bit of mine thing, but I'm going to build on what he said. And the idea is making sure that we are collaborating as one unit and as an example for other members to be emulated. We need to definitely participate in that agenda, be the first one to sign on that agenda, and inviting others. That body system is important, always getting someone under your arm and making sure that they can also get to where you are, and making sure that every single officer understands that retention is everybody's job.
Excellent. Thank you, Edith. Hey, have any other thoughts on this, George?
Yeah, of course, the president really leads the whole parade. They really do. How the president plays in a club, Edith happens to be my president, it sets the tone for the other officers. And I think that's tremendous. It really is. And because I'm a VP of membership, let me address that one too, because that one's so vital, because people inquire with the club all the time, your clubs, I hope they do. Yet at the same time, it's up to you to almost coddle them, to encourage them, to bring them along, to get them into the club to get comfortable. So you're the first line of getting a member in once they have expressed their interest. So I'm just saying that's a vital role too, in addition to Madam President over there.
Excellent. Thank you so very much, George. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to our second question, and that is related to the first. And it's, how do you engage your members in your current officer role? So how do you engage members in your current officer role? And please mention what that role is so we can build on that. Steve, do you have some thoughts on that?
Well, Marie, of course I do. The answer to that question is depending on the people in your group and how engaged they truly are, how much energy they bring to the group. It's interesting where sometimes you have to kind of calm everybody down because they're a little too wild. And when members see that, and they don't want to come to the meetings because it's too active, too, can't say controversial. Sometimes it can get a little controversial, but I want to answer the question that Mary Jane mentioned. What advice can you provide to smaller clubs where officers are not engaged? Try to have some events outside of Toastmasters meetings if you can. And I know they said either workload or other circumstances, that does happen. But one thing you can do is make the meetings exciting. Make the meetings to the point where everybody says, I can't miss the next meeting. That's my take on it.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, thank you. I think we'll get a little more in depth on that in a little bit with some of our future questions. But as far as we are moving here, let's see. Bobby, you said you're the president of several clubs. So how do you engage your members? And by the way, Jeremy, I forgot to mention, if you could do a verbal cue at 45 seconds for Bobby, that would be most appreciated.
Thank you, Maria. First, just let me clarify. I'm president of one club and other positions, other officer positions in other clubs. However, I've been president twice before. How do I engage other officers and other members? I think the key word is comfortable, making them comfortable. So whatever I need to do to engage them, to make them comfortable. For example, with last week, I sent out the agenda because right now I'm covering VP of Education as well. So I sent out the agenda for our club. One of our newer members said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I can't make it. I hate to miss it." And what I did was send the email back to him saying, "Hey, we understand. It definitely happens. We'll miss you. Have fun, and we'll catch up with you next time." So it's just a matter of making sure that every member is comfortable with where they are and making sure that they understand that we understand that life is more than Toastmasters. So sometimes you have to get away. So that's one way. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for that point, Bobby. Excellent. Anyone have any other thoughts from another officer perspective as how you engage your members?
I can chime in, Marie. I think it's critical that members are connected to a portion of the meeting as soon as they come in. So this would be somehow related to the role of the Vice President of Education. One of the strategies that we have used in the past is to providing a new member orientation. I know our district offers new member orientation, but also at the club level, I think it's really important for those members to understand the resources, to have somebody to go to have perhaps a mentor assigned to them that is going to connect them to what's happening at each meeting. I tend to think that if we create value immediately for these individuals that come in and that we help them get through that little bump, which is the fear of the very thing that kept them from coming to Toastmasters to begin with, we will immediately engage them and see results.
Excellent. Thank you, Maria. Any further thoughts on this particular? Oh, George, go ahead.
If I can stay right on Vice President of Education, I'm thinking on pathways. Oftentimes a new member spins their wheels. They don't know how to get started on pathways. And we could get good engagement from a new person if we can get them started on their pathways journey. So that's critical for the Vice President of Education, perhaps, to get them over that little gap of how to get on and get going on pathways.
Pathways, yay. I know Maria and I are all about pathways. Woo-hoo, yay. Thank you. Any other thoughts on this particular question before we shift over to another perspective? Hey, Sue, could you launch our next poll, please? And this one asks of all of you, what is your club's main focus right now? What is your club's main focus? So if you could just choose one and answer. Okay, I'm looking at this poll coming in, and getting new members is definitely leading the pack here. Keeping new members engaged is not that far behind, so good job on keeping us here. Sorry, George, but marketing and PR is only got 1%. And member educational goals has a 9%, as well as becoming a distinguished club. But new members and keeping current members engaged definitely came out at the top of those polls. So thank you for answering those. And panelists, we're going to shift our focus just a little bit towards the member right now. And the question is, how do you know what is important to members? Now, a little of that's already been answered, but from your perspective in your current position or any position you've had, how do you know what is important to members? Who would like to kick us off on that one? Bobby.
There are 3 ways we can learn what's important to our members, from indirect to direct. Indirect is there's a little survey that you can send out to find out what your members are wanting to get out of Toastmasters. I don't remember the name of the actual survey right now. I can get that to you. The second way is making sure that that member has a mentor, whether they're new or otherwise, you still have a mentor. And speaking with that mentor, and during your executive meetings, maybe have them to share that information, as long as it's not anything that member does not want to keep secret or sacred between the two of them.
45.
The third way is simply to make sure you are engaging with the member. You're talking with them and you're asking that question, are you getting out of it what you wanted to get out of it? Those are the three ways that I think that you can definitely make sure that you find out what's important.
Excellent, Bobby. Thank you so very much. 3 points of Toastmasters. Woohoo! Maria, do you have more to add?
I think Edith was first, but I do want to add something here as well. Edith, you want to go first?
I go after you, Maria, because
Okay.
maybe I built on your.
Go ahead, Maria, and then we'll have Edith. Yes.
To me, the best way to know what they want is to ask them. And this is for me a no-brainer, and we should keep the finger on the pulse throughout the membership. We know attrition, right, happens, and we know we lose about 1 out of 2 members for every cycle. So we have to be really intentional about asking them what it is that they want, and then giving them the opportunities to meet those needs and holding them accountable, whether it's through formal conversations or through and surveys or informal conversations. Find out what it is, what they want, and then celebrate their achievements, right? Because if we celebrate as they go through and we show them that it is possible, all of the goals and this DCP and
A&P International, this is
falls in place as a natural byproduct, right? When members are reaching their goals, everything else happens as a natural byproduct.
Excellent. Thank you so very much, Maria. Oh, and Edith, do you have something to add to that?
Definitely check mark with Bobby, check mark with Maria when we're talking about members already there. But those new ones that we just got, that we just signed, one word of being careful for all of us, avoiding polarization and subgroups within your groups, within the clubs. And that's the elephant that sometimes, the white elephant that sometimes we don't address. Some of us have been together for so long that we navigate to our own people and we forget to integrate the new members. Little by little, they feel that they don't belong. And in less than 6 months, they're not renewing. Making sure that you are integrating new members to the crowd and making a very whole integrated club is important for retention.
Thank you, Edith. And Richard has a comment about that as well in the chat. He says to have a visitor or mentors in your club, perhaps have people specifically assigned, because as we all know, there are some members that just have a knack for quietly providing the visitor information and making them feel comfortable. So great thought, Richard, to have purposely sit visitors by those visitor mentors and help keep them engaged. Excellent contribution. And Janelle, I'm not sure I'm saying your name right, but Janelle has sent us something about what Bobby talked about. She said it's the member interest survey that we can send to our people to get that information. Okay, Makita, I see your question. I think we will answer that in a little bit. So let's go on to our next question, which some of you have already touched upon, but the question is, how do you create connection in your club? So thinking about specifically, how do you create connection in your club? So somebody want to kick us off on that one? George, oh, excuse me, Steve, I'm sorry. And George will take you next.
I can be
Okay.
George, whatever. The main thing we do is we try to have post toasties, which we learned from District 84 years ago in a galaxy far, far away before COVID. We would go to post toasties after almost every event. We do something similar in our club because we're a morning group. We go to breakfast right after our meeting. That has connected us. We've also done Christmas parties. We've done some other things together that really helps get each other together. Now, what happens is those that don't come out to the extracurricular activities feel excluded. And we have to try to find a way to exclude them. I mean, it's include them as close and make sure that they feel just as valued.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. George, what do you have to add?
Well, he stole my thunder. Doggone. But at the same time, what we could also do is find out something about the new person and then set them up or link them to somebody else in the club that has something similar to what their journey is. I hope that makes sense. So that way, if there's, let's say English is their second language, well, you can introduce them to somebody else that has English as their second language, and then they have that commonality, and it encourages them to move on down their journey.
Excellent. Thank you, George. And Jacqueline has mentioned in the chat, also we can connect on social. Another good thought. Anyone else have any additional thoughts about Bobby?
I'm a part of member of a lunch club, noon to one club, as well as participate in a few others. And one of the things you don't have time to do the post-OCs even via Zoom a lot of times because people are going back to work and they're just getting in from work at that 12 o'clock hour. So one of the things that we can do is utilize our resources within the program, within the club program of table topics, making sure that we connect through table topics by asking those questions, gearing those questions to learn more about that member or those new members, those guests, as well as during the speeches. When we hear those speeches and we're serving as Toastmaster, we can make a comment. And then if they're into restaurants, make a connection. Hey, you ought to try and let's go here or there. And then, of course, forming events that and inviting those members to those events as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Bobby. Before we leave this question, do we have any other thoughts from any of our other panelists?
Nick, do you have a comment?
I did. I believe that it's important as well to create connection where both the traditional members as well as those that are new to the club both engage in something new. It takes the older members out of their comfort zones and it creates an experience where there's a more even playing field. When we're on even playing fields, we have deeper connections.
Likes that and like that a lot. Thank you, Nick.
I'll add
Excellent.
something here quickly, Marie. I do believe I'm part of a community club, and although I know that post-OCs and a lot of the other social interactions are always very popular, for us it's not always possible because we meet at nighttime, and by the time we're done, it's usually past my bedtime, to be honest with you. But with that being said, one of the most critical values that I promote about Toastmasters that is not as obvious as communication and public speaking is networking. So we invite our members to come in early to network. We invite our members to come in, and usually there's John and a few of our officers that are getting the room set up. But in the meantime, we are connecting. We are getting to know one another. We are giving our guests, and we get anywhere between 8 to 10 guests per meeting lately. We make sure that they feel a warm welcome and well received. And we, as somebody mentioned, we have them sit with with a more experienced member, and that creates connection, that creates those moments. And yes, I take a lot of pictures.
Excellent. Thank you, Maria. Wow, we have some really great ideas. Here's one message that is pertinent right now. It's running by me. Epi says, join the Toastmaster International Foodie Group Facebook, but it's mainly in Orlando. That does not exclude other areas from starting such a club. So there are lots of things going on out there, and all of you have great ideas. Sue, can we launch our third poll, please? This will give us some additional thoughts, perhaps. This question is, what's the most effective way that your club engages members? What is the most effective way that your club engages members? Right now, fun and creative meetings is way out in front of the race. And it is pretty much staying there. So bravo to all of you who are answering this poll. Fun and engaging meetings, keeping your members engaged and keeping them coming to those meetings. Okay, here we go. Pardon me. Okay, we have 2 questions remaining of our official list before we hop over to the chat. And we've answered a few of these, so I'm going to put them together. And it is, how can you show members value? Or in what ways do members pardon me, in what way do members appreciate being recognized? Okay. Okay, obviously recognizing our members gets me all choked up. So how can you show members value? Let's start there. Who has some thoughts on how can you show members value for themselves, for the club? Nick.
Absolutely. I believe that when we give our members recognition, both through social media as well as through tangible certificates, trophies, those kinds of things, we create milestones for them to remember. And that is always important for value, and to also, on days when we're discouraged, to look back and remember we got this far, we can keep going. And I believe that early on, those little ribbons, they, you know, when you get this, it means so much. And for us to continually recognize, especially efforts that people may not have, it's wonderful. And I'm in the red.
It's okay. That was valuable information. Thank you for sharing that. You know, the other day, in one of my clubs, a member showed up virtually, has not shown up virtually before. And even though he's a longtime Toastmaster, the wall behind his camera was loaded with those ribbons. It was very impressive. So yes, they do mean a lot to a lot of people. So how about someone else? How can you show members value, and in what ways do your members appreciate being recognized? Anyone have thoughts?
Steve has his hand, and then I want to add.
Okay, Steve and then Maria.
Well, I wanted to answer the question that I believe Deborah Wild asked about encouraging members through the badges and pathways. I can speak for myself and several of the others in my clubs that don't even know about the badges and pathways, which is part of the VPE's responsibility to let people know about it. But I'm not challenged digitally, but I mean, I don't have a problem with going online or anything like that, but I just don't see value for me, and several of the people I've talked to don't see those badges as very interesting to them. However, I haven't brought it out. I know gamification. I haven't brought it out to other people to see if they're interested in it as well.
Yeah.
Just because I'm not interested in it doesn't mean others are.
It may be that's, you know, a lot of different ideas for a lot of different people. So that may be one. Maria, you had some thoughts.
To that point, you know, we do have different generations in our clubs, and we are attracting and appealing to different generations. And I do believe gamification is one of those components that might be most interesting to some generations versus others. But my point, to add to what has been said, I would want to add that it has to be personal, right? So let's figure out how people want to be recognized. Some people love to be social media. They love to receive certificates. They love to receive ribbons and to be social about it. So recognizing both Toastmasters and non-Toastmasters achievements that members have achieved, I think is a huge deal. For others, might just be a pat in the back or job well done, or even a card. To do my homework for today, I asked our club officers, how did you want to be recognized? And I received several answers, from ribbons and branded merchandise, like certificates, and the pins that we had available, as well as the personalized handwritten notes that we don't get anymore, but people still appreciate.
Excellent. Thank you, Maria. There's quite a few comments in the chat right now. George, I'll get to you in a second. Donald says we share with the new members why we initially joined Toastmaster and what our goals are, so that he feels helps. Carolyn agrees that gratifications are individual. Debbie Joe has said, show members the value. She said they had members in their club who were getting ready to give presentations outside of Toastmasters, and the club encouraged them to present to the club where everyone evaluated them. So that gives additional encouragement. Also, Venkata, I hope I'm saying it correctly, is sending the recognition to their bosses at work. That's a great one for keeping them. Yeah. Okay, there are some other questions which we will get to in a moment. George, you have thoughts on this question?
Thank you, Marie. I wanted to touch on the icebreaker. I could do icebreakers all day long. And you know what I'm going to leave out of an icebreaker? Constructive criticism. I'm going to give them just flowers and tell them how well they did, because I can see their future, how they're just going to blossom into a great speaker. And they need that encouragement, that fertilizer, if you will, but just to start that icebreaker and start them off right. That's, I think, is vital.
We give them standing ovations after icebreakers in our club.
Right, standing ovations, yes. Edith, did you have another thought?
No, I was signaling you, you were muted.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. I didn't get the signal. Okay, does anyone have any additional thoughts on that before we hop over to our questions that are in the chat?
Marie, Bobby raised his hand.
Well, Bobby raised his hand. Thank you, Maria. Bobby, what are your thoughts?
Sure. So when it comes to making sure that a member feels valued, as well as letting them know that they are moving forward, I think those kind of go hand in hand. So one of the things that we do in one of our clubs is whenever someone has an event that they are doing or have done or going to do, then we encourage them to share it at either the beginning of the club or maybe during an educational moment. What better educational moment could there be? And then the other thing, just to show value, is to share a note. Someone mentioned cards, but you can do through the chat or after the meeting, just to make sure they understand it's not just a meeting thing, but after the meeting saying, hey, I love the way you did this or that. We had a guest, make this really quick, who gave a table topic the other day. And so I sent her a chat and said, hey, I love your poetic flow, because it was full of poetry, the way she spoke, and it got a great response. And those are the type of things that we can also do in addition to everything else. Thank you.
Excellent. I love your ideas. And Edith, thoughts?
Yeah, just a quick one. And as a mentor, and I love mentoring, that's one of my passions in the club, typically. I think the mentor is probably the person that can give more reward and recognition to the individual, because it's more intimate and because it's already a relationship that is forged in trust and understanding of where do we want to go together, how do we journey in your success. And I believe that when that mentor tells you, you did so good on what you were working on, it's the most believable and the most rewarding, actually for both, for the mentor and the mentee.
Excellent. Thank you. That sort of brought us full circle back around to those individual recognitions. So thank you very much. Panelists, thank you. Oh, Nick, do you have some final thoughts before we hop over to the chat?
The last thing I will say is, if your club has that person that has been in Toastmasters for years and years, put that person as the club mentor, give them that recognition and have them engage with those folks, because they're going to be able to discern which needs they have. That's all I've got.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for bringing that in, because that brings it together. It's not just our new members that we need to encourage and pay attention to, but also our more experienced members as well. So thank you. I'm going to hop over to the chat and look at the questions. Jeremy, if I could impose upon you to give us a green light at 8 and a yellow at 9 and a red at 10, that would be fantastic. Thank you. So I've gone up from the poll that said questions for the panel. First question that we haven't yet addressed is, how are other clubs approaching membership within professional work environments for Toastmasters? That was a question from Courtney. So does anyone have any thoughts about how are you approaching membership within that professional work environment? None of us are in corporate clubs. Bobby.
Sorry. Sure. One of the ways I'm not in a corporate club right now per se, or not a part of an organization, but I used to be. And one of the things that we would do is, of course, put out flyers in those break rooms where everyone go and have lunch. But then on a more official level, go to the human resource personnel, whichever, as well as the communications department, and ask the question, do you have anyone that could maybe benefit from being a better speaker? Or go to the directors and say, do you have anyone that you're thinking of for leadership? I just want to share with them about Toastmasters. Can I share a little bit at the next meeting? Can I have 5 minutes?
Excellent. Thank you, Bobby, for those thoughts. George, you have some others? And then Maria?
Yes, I do. In fact, if you don't mind me retelling a story, I heard from Inga today, and she's on this call. In terms of a value of a corporate club, networking. You can have networking. And Inga pointed out that she had a problem that she was trying to get a document done, and then she found it was a former Toastmaster that could get her answer. So it made it so much easier for her to get the information that she needed. So yes, you can network within a corporate, and that's a good thing to add value to somebody in a corporate club.
Excellent. Thank you, George. And Maria, could you add your thoughts? You're on mute.
According to some of the research that we've read, right, for community clubs, it's more about the social opportunity. For corporate clubs, it's about the professional development, the career advancement. So one of the presentations we hosted last year, and I'll find the link to the YouTube recording, is in our YouTube channel. It's about speaking the language. So I think that instead of making it necessarily the warm and fuzzy feeling, speak the language. If it's a sales team, approach them with the terminology that is going to help them connect the dots. If you're speaking to HR, help them understand how this particular endeavor is going to help their members or their employees be better at presenting or communicating or leading if they're mentoring individuals within their team. So it's about customizing that message. And I think that for a while with COVID and everything, we all had a little bit of Zoom fatigue. But now that in some environments we're going back to in person, I think it's really important to leverage all of the opportunities that we have and don't get tired. Keep going after those key decision makers, knocking on doors, making the informal presentations, and something that I will never, ever stop promoting, which is about the personal invitation. If each of us always invite somebody, we'll always have a new guest coming to our clubs.
Excellent. Thank you, Maria. I'm going to zoom through these questions a little bit more quickly, and let me remind all of us, panelists and participants as well, we will be having breakout rooms following this Q&A section, and that's where you can discuss these questions in a little bit more detail. There is a question here about what advice can you provide for smaller clubs where not all the officers are engaged due to either workload or other circumstances? I think that's a rather large question, and we might save that for our breakouts. So if you could, I'll just write a note down to yourselves to perhaps do that. And Marjane, if you could bring that up in your breakout, I think that's a perfect place for discussion. Hey, there is a question here from Courtney that says, is flexibility to do other roles a key in advancing the participation of a Toastmaster? So is that other roles in the meeting or other officer roles? I think we could take that as either. And does anyone have any thoughts about that? Is flexibility to do other roles a key in advancing the participation in Toastmasters? Anyone have any thoughts? Edith.
I will start by taking that the key is above flexibility is the desire to serve. And as volunteers in our organization, obviously we're gaining skills. We are being part of something that we pay for. We pay to be volunteers. It's just a very interesting concept. But at the end of the day, the more roles that you're playing, whether in the meeting, whether as an officer, the more skills you're getting and the more you're advancing as an individual and as a Toastmasters. But I will say sometimes we have to build in our own skills. I'm a lousy secretary. And especially when I see Debbie Wild doing her job that she sent it immediately 1 minute after the meeting is over, I know that's not my role. I can contribute more in a different role. So understanding our skill and when we can serve the best is always key.
Excellent. Thank you, Edith. I'm going to try to get through most of these. Karen has asked about, please address member retention for corporate clubs. I think we brushed on that just a little bit, but Karen, if you could bring that up in your breakout room. There's a question here from Makita. It says, has anyone done a new member induction ceremony or awards ceremony? Steve, speak to that briefly, please.
Yes, rather quickly. We have done several. There's the induction ceremony for the incoming officers. We meet, or we elect our new officers every 6 months. Sometimes we do it every 6 months. Sometimes we only do it at the beginning of the Toastmaster year after we have our new officer roles our new officers taking on their roles. But then we also do a new induction or a new member induction, which we give them a coin, we congratulate them, we have the Toastmasters pledge that we recite with them. And it's actually a very helpful, engaging way to start a journey for a new Toastmaster.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. I'm going to zoom down these. Jacqueline says, please call us established members, not older. So just a good reminder for all of us, even whatever side of that coin we are on. Hey, Richard talks about his Toastmasters has a special meeting as a social venue and a practice ground for outside distractions. Oh, good. So with a lot of noise, and so it gives you practice for that. Scott says, talk to each other. What can you do to help someone accomplish their goals? And let's see, Marjane is talking about different answers for her 2 different clubs. So Marjane, be sure to bring that up. Deb has talked about Pathways badges. We addressed that. There's a shout out here to Sherry, who does a spotlight on the members and shares it on a Facebook page. And I'm going to run out of time here for all of these questions. I'm looking at them here. Oh, here's one. Thank you, Jeremy. Here's one specifically to the panel. How many times were you invited to Toastmasters before you came to a meeting and decided to join? If anyone just yell out how many times. Okay.
1.
3, Bobby 1.
Yeah.
I invited myself.
Marie invited herself, so did I. Edith 1. Steve, how many was yours? 1, and George was?
It was my HR manager invited me.
Oh, okay, so 1. All right, we're pushovers in this group. Okay, let's see. Gratifications, I think we addressed most of these. Not okay. For those of you who are asking about time, we have got 1 more minute before we will move to our breakout sessions. We did start just a little bit late, and I wanted to try to get through as many of these questions as possible. Some of them have personalized. A lot of people are talking about personalizing the needs of the members, and just some great kudos for your ideas. And Leverage Toastmasters as part of the corporate culture and of personal development. Great idea for those corporate clubs. Okay, I think I am running short on time. So if your questions were not specifically addressed, please bring them to your breakout room. And I do want to thank all of our panelists tonight for your participation, for all of your great ideas. I'm hoping that those of you who are in the meeting have learned something and can take something back for you. There was just a lot of great ideas. You do have the panelists' emails in the back of your workbook. So if there's someone specific you would like to ask a question to, please do that. Everyone in Toastmasters loves to share. So thank you again to all the panelists, and to whom am I giving the meeting back to? Vicky. Back to
Thank
our
you,
virtual
Marie.
lecture.
Let's hear it for Marie's fantastic facilitation skills and her speed reading. I'm really surprised by all that. Was great. And I too have gotten choked up by some of those wonderful things, Marie. You handled it all very well. Good example for all of us. Fellow Toastmasters and club leaders, district leaders, I wanted to just mention Sue has loaded into our chat several times that same workbook and resource book that I sent out to you in advance. The whole purpose of that is for you to start thinking about some of those topics. Consider them. Talk to your fellow officers about those topics. And we're going to go into that in some of the breakout rooms as well. But the other thing I wanted to mention, particularly for those of you that are the new officers, although those with experience could benefit from these tools, is the resource listed on the last page that's described, that gives, it's a resource link, and it says it provides a role summary. That's a one-page summary of your role. It also provides a tutorial, sort of a click through tutorial of your responsibilities for the particular position you're serving in. And important to all of us, there's a self-evaluation that's available. And I suggest that all of you look at that self-evaluation and take it to see if you are really living up to all of the expectations that your leadership opportunity is providing. I know that I'm probably not all the time, but it helps me look to see what's there, so I know, again, how to challenge myself, what goal I might set for myself personally. Because more than anything, we want you as leaders to grow in your role as a leader. This should not be a drudgery. This should not be work and horrible stuff you have to do. Someone's got to do it. Enjoy it. Take advantage of it. Rise to the challenges of dealing with difficult people. Rise to all of those wonderful opportunities you have to develop your skills, to practice like we do in our Toastmasters input. So make sure that you take advantage of all of those things. And in case you have not seen it, you know, right now, there is a call for nominations to be leaders, district leaders. There's an opportunity for all of you currently at the club leadership level to step up your game, to serve as an area director, to run for division director or trio member, club growth director. You can self-nominate, or your friends will happily nominate you. It's a wonderful experience just running. So I challenge all of you to look over that opportunity and think about that. We are now going to get ready to move into our breakout rooms. I know everybody's ready for that. I have already taken some attendance. I will continue to do that. So Sue, work your magic, please.